Biden's border crisis 21 minutes after the hour. Our southern border crossings not slowing down, while the variety of countries the migrants are coming from is actually expanding. Joining me now, former acting director of ICE and former chief of the Border Patrol, Ron Vitiello. Ron, listen, when we talk about the incredible numbers that we have seen, these interactions happening along the border, it is beyond stunning. And I think for those who don't live in the border states, it's something that you can maybe watch at a distance or maybe pick up on television. But in particular for the Americans who are living in these border states, it is galling to see what is happening. Your thoughts?
Yeah, we went from, in less than a year, think about it, in less than a year, we went from record numbers of low activity, low apprehensions, low activity at the border, a modicum of control, to the worst it's ever been. I mean, the worst in the history of the entire border, 1.7 million apprehensions last fiscal year. I've heard from people on the ground now that they're above pace for the 1.7. So we're going to get close to 2 million probably this year if this doesn't change. And unfortunately, there is no signal that it's going to change. This administration pulled back what was effectively the tools that ended the last border surge. And did away with all of them, all at the same time, without any preparation, without any augmentation. We saw what the border looked like in Del Rio when all the Haitians were there. We saw at the beginning of the year when they rescinded these policies, all of the overcrowding in places like South Texas. And so there's no end in sight until Congress acts or something. Unfortunately, if something bad happens, maybe they'll change their minds. But they're pursuing an open borders policy, and they're encouraging people to come to that border, and chaos reigns. The cartels are in control of most of our southwest border. And it's unfortunate because this is all self-inflicted.
Well, you hit on something that I think is really important, in particular when you think about these people who are coming. Many of them may be looking for a better opportunity or better life, but there are obviously going to be people among them who are here to do America harm. I mean, we have no idea where some of these people are coming from. In fact, I remember reading a piece last week. There was a gentleman picked up. I'm not sure if he came from Yemen or from some other country, and yet you wonder, are we going to suffer the dramatic and devastating consequences of this particular policy down the line?
Well, the Department of Homeland Security, CBP, the Border Patrol, they exist in order to protect us from what's happening on this border. And you're right to call out that, people that get caught and apprehended at the border, they're affiliated with terrorism. And they're in the same flow of the people who want a better life, who are seeking asylum, and all the kinds of things that our immigration law allows for. But when there's so much chaos on the border, when they're encountering nearly 2 million people in a year's time, we heard from the chief of Del Rio yesterday that he goes entire shifts, an entire 8 hours where there's nobody patrolling the border in Del Rio because they're forced to care and comfort and process the people that they already have in custody. And so that allows the cartels, and that allows anybody that makes it to that border to cross freely. So if you're catching 1.7 million in a year, how many are actually getting away? And it's a terrible situation, and it does put us all at risk because those people don't stay at the border. And if they're coming to do us harm, the Border Patrol is less capable, CBP and the department are less capable to find them and sort them from the threats that exist on the border.
Well, you nailed it, because you can't, for every person that's coming for a better life, perhaps, you could have, who knows, as you mentioned, you have the cartels, a lot of exploitation happening for innocent victims along the border. And this is the sort of thing that perpetuates itself years down the line. Very quickly before we go, I want to draw your attention to what happened in Pennsylvania. You may have heard about this. There was sort of an overnight flight happening on Christmas night. Now, the governor there, Governor Wolf, says, listen, this flight was actually sort of passing through, and yet there are some state lawmakers now in the Keystone State that say, well, wait a minute, we need to know when you have migrants flying in and out of Wilkes-Barre, for example. Let me share part of a statement. It says this: the people of Pennsylvania have a right to this information, and the fact that these flights have been happening without their knowledge is disturbing, to say the least. It goes on. Full transparency regarding these flights is necessary to ensure the health and safety of Pennsylvania communities is adequately protected. And when I look at statements like that, I think to myself, I want to know if people are flying in and out of my community, in particular if they're migrants. Are the people COVID tested? We're talking a lot about how Americans need to be. Are they doing the same for the migrants who are coming here from all over the globe?
No, I agree with you. Transparency is important here. This is another example of where what happens at the border affects the entire country. So border security is the same thing as national security. And the government owes the people that they're sending into these communities, they owe the people who live in those communities what's happening. Where are these people coming from? What part of the immigration enforcement continuum are they going to be in? Right. So all of that transparency is necessary for us to have confidence that they're doing the right thing.
Last thing, I want to share some numbers. I mean, you talked about them just a moment ago. They are quite stunning. CBP enforcement stats showing, look at the interactions. It's mind-boggling. 1.9, nearly 2 million in fiscal year 2021. Already since October, another 384,000. I'm just curious, based on your experience and your connections, obviously, with the men and women who are on the rank and file, they're working. What are they telling you?
No, they're demoralized. We're in a situation where the policy changes have encouraged people to come to the border in large numbers. And every time that this administration has gone out to make a policy statement, they've backed away from the rule of law. They've told people that are in the country illegally not to worry about ICE coming after them. They've told employers that they're not going to raid businesses that people are working illegally in. They set up a set of priorities that unless you're a threat to public safety or you've just crossed the border, that ICE isn't allowed to even approach you, let alone take you into custody for removal proceedings. And so the morale's terrible because they're in a situation that they can't walk away from. Those first responders, those agents, those officers and agents at ICE, they're responsible to protect us. And so those people come to the border and they have to deal with it.
Suffering from those who come and those who are already here. Ron Vitiello, former acting director of ICE. As always, we appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Good to be with you, Kevin. Happy New Year.
You too.